God, is
Oh my
everyone
God.
reading it?
I've been caught reading the same book as this is my favorite part. Ooh, saucy.
Stop. That fold out. It's a surprise for everyone. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's episode of Armchair Producers, episode 164. Hashtag the Pawnbroker.
Not Pornhub, the Pawnbroker.
Yes.
Very different.
I am one of your hosts, George Tarrant, alongside the man who will lead us all in this blissful new life that is ahead of us and that every day of tomorrow. Mr. Travis Croft, how are you, sir?
I am fine and dandy, and I feel like my reputation precedes me.
It does. It does indeed. I spouted from the rooftops. Now, I have been far too busy with certain things like God of War Ragnarok coming out today on PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 to be able to actually get a full gamut of movie and TV show viewings. I haven't had a chance to play Ragnarok because I was serving all of you sons of bitches in my store today. I hope you're all enjoying it. Apparently it is coming out very, very well. But Travis has absolutely lifting the show even higher than he normally does. We have got a bit of a stacked show for you. We are talking about our chain movie of the week, following Morgan Freeman from last week's Dreamcatcher, which was still very much a steaming pile of turd for both myself and Travis. We are following him to his uncredited role in The Pawnbroker. And
his first role ever.
I failed to actually spot him.
It takes some effort. It's a non-speaking role.
I think he was he in the background in one of the pool scenes?
No, he was outside the pawn shop smoking a cigarette in the scene at the end of the film, towards the end of the film. Honestly, if you didn't, I was looking real closely because I Googled it while I was watching, going, where is he? And there was massive online debates because apparently he's never confirmed it. But that's believed to be. But a slight cheat, but IMDb credited as his first cinematic role.
That is enough for this show. We are the bare minimum, ladies and germs. I have got the keys for where we're going next, and it's a movie that I have heard a few things about. It has got a good 85 on Metacritic, and I've never had a chance to watch it. And there are plenty of good quality actors and directors, producers, and writers that will be able to give you plenty of places to go for afterwards. But we will get to that reveal later on. Travis is going to talk about Argentina 1985 that we did say that we were going to do last week, but we ended up running long, so he's going to talk about it this week. I have watched more of The Peripheral on Prime Video. We've got Always Be My Maybe, Enola Holmes 2, Weird and Bros to talk about. So let's get on with the show. Straight into our chain movie of the week. Hashtag chain movie. The Pawnbroker. PAWN. Just a reminder.
This is not a Trey Parker and Matt Stone film.
No.
Have you ever seen Orgasmo? We should try and find a reason to watch it.
Yes, I have seen it. It's interesting.
It's a funny movie. I nominated The Pawnbroker because it's kind of the opposite of Dreamcatcher. In that
it's a good movie.
It's in black and white. It was made about 60 years ago, and it's made by a genius, and it's actually good. The Pawnbroker is in a poor neighborhood of New York. The bitter and lonely Jewish pawnbroker Sol Naserman is a survivor from Auschwitz that has no emotions or feelings. Sol lost his dearest family and friends in the war, and his faith in God and belief in mankind. Now he only cares for money and is haunted by daydreams, actually flashbacks from the period of the concentration camp. Sol's assistant is the ambitious Latino Jesus Ortiz, who wants to learn with Sol how to run a business of his own. When Sol realizes the obscure laundry business he has with the powerful gangster Rodriguez comes also from brothels, Sol recalls the fate of his beloved wife in the concentration camp and has a nervous breakdown. His attitude leads Jesus Ortiz to a tragedy, and Sol finds a way to cry. It is a black and white, as I said, stars the great Rod Steiger as Sol. He was nominated for an Academy Award, but lost to someone else who's in a movie I've never seen. The only other real name in here you might recognize is Brock Peters. He plays Rodriguez, the gangster, and he, as I noted last week, played Admiral Cartwright in a couple of the Star Trek original series movies, Star Trek 4 and Star Trek 6.
Now, there was actually another face in there that I recognized, and that was Charles Durkop, Robinson. And he was in Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid and The Sting, two classic ones. So he's a face that I went, oh, I know him.
Also in Silent Night, Deadly Night as the Killer Santa. And if that's not what we're watching next week, I, for one, will be disappointed.
Well, prepare to be disappointed.
Shit. This is a pretty full-on movie. This is, as I mentioned earlier, directed by a genius. Is directed by the great Sidney Lumet or Lumet. I don't actually know if it's Lumet or Lumet. I assume it's Lumet. For those who are uninitiated and don't know who he is, unfortunately, he has passed away about 10 years ago now. But he was about to start one hell of a run with this film. This is an early film in his directorial career. But he started his directorial career with a little movie called 12 Angry Men in 1950. Never heard of it. It's certainly not rated as the number, one of the top, 250 on IMDb. I don't remember exactly which one it is, but it's usually thereabouts. Number 5, apparently, on IMDb. So, it's not nowhere, nothing. Not really did very much from there. His Long Day's Journey into Night, which is a well-known one. Failsafe, probably less well-known. Actually, a really fucking great movie. Went on to direct. Sorry?
I remember Failsafe, I think.
Dog Day Afternoon, Serpico, that kind of thing. The guy seriously was one of the greats. Network. Who could forget The Wiz? Which is, of course, the Diana Ross.
The Wiz for what it is.
Michael Jackson musical. He got around in Sidney Lumet, but this is early in his career, and you can really feel it because it's not a film that really evokes the 60s for me, because there's a lot of experimental shit going on in here. They're trying really hard to eschew some of the established protocols of cinema and do some stuff that's different. The way their flashbacks are just sort of slotted in. Smash cuts into these flashbacks. And they're sort of like 2-frame flashes of stuff, and it's like it goes on for a few seconds at a time. And it's honestly actually a little bit annoying and not as successful as it could be. But it's different. It feels really different.
Yeah. It's I think a lot of that is part of the challenge of watching this movie is the experimental nature of it. And there's some similarities in the technical / production side of this movie, watching it now, as I have watching something like Citizen Kane, where it was just mind-blowing, the idea of having the camera move forwards through a window into a scene and things like that. Like, what? That's obviously fucking dead and gone when you think about the amount of fucking, like, the Russo brothers in that movie they made halfway through this year with so much drone work going through. It's now gone to extreme lengths. But as we've gone through a number of movies where it's the Godfather effect of, oh, this feels trite and stagnant, and it's like, oh, it's very, very basic. And I'm like, yeah, because this is where it was starting. One of the big things for me that really consistently ran out, not just the editing of these kind of post-traumatic stress hallucinations that Saul is having, was actually the sound. The sound control, the use of kind of stock audio and things like that. It was used to really elicit an emotion. For the prime one that I'm thinking of right now is in the flashback where we see him imagining and remembering that person trying to climb up the fence and the dog coming after it. It's a dog. It's an Alsatian, but the sound effect is of a tiger. It's going. It's like, that's not what dogs sound like. But the idea, the intensity of that noise, that's what they were trying to elicit in that. And whilst, because we're so used to such high quality sound production now, it does stand out, but I get why they chose it. And the audio of the city, so many shots of him just walking through the streets. And then we think of something like when we watched Bullet and the sound of San Francisco. It was an evolved version of this. It was quite expressive for its time. And I think that not just that, but the content as well. The fact that there's the full frontal.
This is the first film, apparently, to have a full frontal nude shot of your first US film to show a nude woman from the waist up and be granted a production code seal. So I was actually not expecting that from a film from 1964. I was a bit shocked.
Yeah.
Apparently, so was the actress.
Yeah. The other one was just a little cutaway scene with Robinson, the other actor that I recognize, and he's sitting there just kind of ogling two male models.
That was interesting, wasn't it? Yeah, in a magazine.
Yeah, it was a great little moment because he was kind of flicking his gun around, just very casual, but it told so much, and it was just like, wait, what? In a 1964 movie, then
you're insinuating he's a homosexual, like in a film from 1964. I mean, that must have been pretty controversial.
Yeah,
I mean, but maybe they swear, maybe that's how they snuck it in, is they put the nude scene in, and the NPA guys were so busy like having a panic attack.
Don't look in the left hand.
I've heard of them doing that shit before. It's like putting something really shocking in so they can get something else that hoping they're not noticing. So the synopsis gives a pretty decent idea. We have Sol, he runs his pawn shop. Ortiz works for him. The pawn shop is an incredible set. I love the pawn shop set. So you can look up images of this online if you like, but it's all cages. Obviously, a pawn shop would generally look like that, right? I mean, they're dealing with a lot of cash and valuable gear, popular place to rob. So he works behind a cage, but there are cages within cages there.
Yeah.
So it's almost difficult sometimes to figure out where the cage ends and where the store begins.
Yeah.
And they're constantly sort of moving in and out of a cage, particularly Ortiz. But I mean, there's the genius of this for me is, and I'm pretty fucking stupid, and symbolism usually goes way over my head. But it's pretty fucking obvious, and it's really nicely done that the Sol is a prisoner in his own mind. He is a prisoner to his memories, to his trauma, and he's pretty much, when he's in that store, he stays inside that cage, whereas Ortiz moves in and out of the cage. Yeah, where like Ortiz is only sort of he's not a prisoner of that trauma, but he does visit with Sol, and he sort of sucks up some of that trauma because he's kind of on the receiving end of some of Sol's, shall we say, bad mood.
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful metaphor for the story because this is a man who was trapped by his past. He's I found the opening scenes actually kind of hilarious. It's almost like something you would see the Simpsons take the piss out of happy people dancing in a freaking meadow and children laughing and catching butterflies and having a picnic and eating beautiful food. Then Nazis with machine guns and people screaming, and you're like, oh, goodness.
I'll tell you something. This movie is a masterpiece of telling story without words, because you commented about Sol being trapped in this cage, and that is reflective in a number of points. First up, when we first see him in there, it's a lot of close-ups, and we don't really see the walls of the prison. So it's, even in his mind, he's still sort of like all kind of prim and tidy and keeping it all together. And over the course of the film, we see his visual, his visage kind of break. His hair starts coming down. He gets beaten up at one point, and it's also in time with these increasingly rapid flashbacks that are happening to him and causing him effect, as well as every time we are getting the camera pulling out and seeing the size of the pawn shop, as well as the cages within cages. And then when he goes to visit the woman, he says, when he's having lunch with her, he says, I have found a place within myself that I'm very comfortable with, and I would just want everyone to leave me alone. And that's kind of right at the point of the story where it's that tipping point where we go from this generally horrible, unlikable, boring man to suddenly sort of like seeing his world and those plates spinning, just wobbling more and more and more. It's incredibly done.
Yeah, it's a good point. This is, I mean, we talked a little bit about it last week. If this is a perfect example of show, don't tell. If you have to explain stuff to us, like for a 5-minute monologue of exposition, you failed.
Yeah.
Most of the time. There are exceptions, of course. But you found Soul particularly dislikable then?
Yeah, at the start, full disclosure, I thought this movie was boring as shit. And then it was like, okay, I don't like this guy. I have no interest. And I soldiered through. And my God, I'm glad I did, because it's a fucking phenomenal journey of a character.
The end is just not the end of his film, but the final act is outstanding. It really rewards. You said it rewards the viewer. It does suffer a bit from being of its time, especially in the first half. Films of the 60s could afford to get away with being of a more languid pace. You probably don't get away with that a whole. Maybe an indie film. I am probably lying. Chloe Zhao still makes films, but you know.
Ooh, watch out, Chloe, that knife is coming for you.
Have you seen Nomadland? I mean, it is a journey of very slow journey. But it was more common, I think, of these sort of films at the time to be a little bit more, a little slower with their storytelling. And it certainly can be, and some things sort of just happen. Like Brock Peters at one point just turns up and he's hanging out and giving him orders, like someone's going to come by and give you $5,000 and this is his name, and you don't get a whole lot of explanation about who he is or why he's there. You just kind of got to put the pieces together and go, okay, he's some sort of fucking gangster, I guess. Is he paying protection money? I don't know. But as you sort of note, it really starts to ramp up. What did you make of Jesus Ortiz's character? I thought his journey was also one of the more interesting ones in the film.
Yes, absolutely agree. I feel like it suffers a little bit from another trope of its time, where the actors just looked a bit too old for the vibrancy of the character and the kind of age that I think he was actually trying to be. Because there was, his character is almost that point of youthful idolization of Saul. But he just looked a little bit old to kind of get away with it. But the performer, what's his name? I want to get it right. James Sanchez. He still does a really good. He does a really good job of bringing that, and especially from his opening introduction of him kind of coming in like a blast of icy cold wind into the pawn shop and just being loud and braggadocious, and then being very quickly put in his place, and then those much more quiet scenes of him referring to Saul as teacher and things like that, and the odd dichotomy of him at work versus him trying to just be a good guy but feeling the pressure of the street on him.
I think that he is sort of our entree to one of the other parts of the story, which is a bit more subtle. Is that this store is in Harlem, I think. It's supposed to be in one of the poorer neighborhoods of New York. I don't think Harlem is poor anymore, by the way. I don't know, but I don't think it is. I don't think there are any poor neighborhoods in New York City.
This was set in Hell's Kitchen.
I know that guy with a mask who was jumping around in a leather suit.
That was a bit weird.
I don't know. It's an odd choice for the director. It's a poor neighborhood. It's a pretty rough, pretty poor neighborhood that he's a member of. He's working in, and I think the idea is that this is supposed to be a reflection as well of what happened during the Holocaust, in the sense that the people, while he was a prisoner in a camp, his customers, his neighbors, are prisoners of their poverty. And they're prisoners in a different way. They're prisoners of their circumstances. And, whereas he had to do what he had to do to survive in the camp, these people have to do what they have to do to survive their circumstances. And Ortiz, is, I think, a perfect example of that. And he's trying really hard to sort of try and walk the path of a righteous man.
Yeah.
To quote one of Morgan Freeman's letter roles in Pulp Fiction, I think it was. Sorry, that was a joke. Don't point that out to me, but that's not true. Yeah.
No, I think you're mixing him up with Lawrence Fishburne.
No, sorry, it's Denzel Washington. That's fucking racist, and I won't have it. But I think that's kind of an idea. I'm not sure it's as well developed potentially, but I think that's supposed to be. He has these really pathetic customers who are coming in, like the pregnant lady who tries to bring in her wedding or engagement ring, and he just goes, "That's glass," and he just sort of had destitution when she realizes it's not real. He told me it was real, and and how desperate these people are to survive. And I think that's an interesting comment there, but I don't know you get away with that today, in the sense of, like, can you really compare extreme poverty to being in a German concentration camp? I don't know. But I thought it was an interesting try by the film, and I believe the film is based on a book, and I believe that was that theme was quite heavily reinforced in the book, maybe more so than the film.
Yeah, I think that there's, again, more visual storytelling in that, where Saul is walking along and he sees a group of guys just beating the shit out of this one poor black guy. And it's not just Saul that just walks on, because he has a flashback to being beaten up in the concentration camps. But there's another couple that just casually walk past. There's no sirens going, no nothing. So it's further expressing the almost Mad Maxian level of the streets at night. It's a dangerous place. If you're the wrong ethnicity or religion or anything like that, you'll get fucked up, and it makes the whole movie scary.
And it's geez, I tell you what, you wouldn't want to be in the wrong place at the wrong time in that neighborhood. But back to those flashbacks, though, they are, I think, the scene of the film for me, probably aside from the conclusion, is the scene where Ortiz's girlfriend comes to the pawn shop. Ortiz is trying to raise money to get his business off the ground, and they're short some money. And she tries to go to the store owner to get that extra money, because she knows that Ortiz is going to do something. It's going to take him off his path. Right straight now. You know what it reminded me of that point was Emily the Criminal from a few weeks ago, which is really about that challenge of Aubrey Plaza's character trying to make that decision about walking a straight line and getting a real job, a straight job, or the appeal, the money from doing illegal things. Not in the same class of film, but I found myself drawing parallels. But Ortiz's girlfriend rolls up to the pawnbroker and tries to sell some stuff to make enough money to avoid Ortiz having to make the wrong choice. Unfortunately, though, he doesn't have enough stuff to actually be able to make that happen. So she tries to sell herself to Saul to make the money. In that she is a sex worker. And that is the topless scene that we talked about earlier on. But it's one of the most incredible scenes in the film, in the sense that she's saying to him, "You can look. It costs you nothing to look. It doesn't cost you anything to look." As she's trying to entice him into using her services, shall we say. But that moment is when he has one of the most visceral flashbacks in the film, where he's actually flashing back to being back in the camp in Auschwitz, I think it's assumed, where he is forced he's had his head smashed through a window by a Nazi guard, and he's forced to watch his wife being sexually assaulted and essentially raped, I guess is the insinuation here, because they probably couldn't show it, but I think that's what they were trying to say by camp guards. And that's that vision he's having at the moment. She's, and he's cutting back between the two of them. It's just like, wow, that's fucked up in the most powerful way. But it's done so nicely in the film. And so you can kind of go, that's horrible, but I like how you're doing it. I can appreciate the skill that's gone into that scene. That's the kind of intense shit you're going to be watching of this film if you can be lucky enough to find a copy, because it was very difficult to find.
Yeah. But overall, I think that this movie was a complete success, worthy of the praise that it's received at the time of release and going forwards. It's a challenging watch. It is kind of confronting in a lot of ways, but I also think that this is kind of an important movie to watch because it tells a kind of story that we don't really get too much of. And even when we do, it's not as visceral as this. Like, there are movies that, especially in the last kind of 10, 15 years, there have been more movies that are coming in and talking about the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder and similar kind of life-altering extreme scenarios and survivor's guilt, which is what he definitely is struggling with, because he embraces death. He wants it. So I think that it is very important to have that and to keep going. And there's kind of one of the more recent ones that I can think of is, like, briefly mentioned it last week because of Bradley Cooper, but American Sniper, and just the cause and effect of that. Now it's more about, it never feels quite as intimate or personal as this movie does. This really felt intimate and borderline invasive of him, and a part of that is, again, the design of the movie. We are one of the people that Saul wants to fuck off and leave alone because he doesn't like people visiting him. And we are literally visiting him. We are visiting him at the pawn shop. We are visiting him at his most intimate, private times. Great example. The two romance scenes intercut between Jesus and Saul. And Saul is just there, and we just see these slow hands just grasping, no movement of bodies or anything like that. He's looking away from the camera, whereas Saul, it's youthful, passionate, fun. So that kind of making it difficult and really getting us into the scene in a way that I haven't experienced in a very long time. So
the film that came to mind for me, and I agree with everything you've just said there, was maybe, and it's not as successful as this film, was Reign Over Me, the Don Cheadle. First time I'm quoting an Adam Sandler film in a positive manner. But if you think about this, like, I mean, you're right, it's a very visceral film, and the people who made this is less than 20 years after the Holocaust actually happened. Yeah. Like, there are people who apparently were offered the role whose parents died in the Holocaust. There were probably film directors working in Hollywood who had escaped Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
So it would have been very much in people's minds as a fresh horror, of what something that have actually happened. Survivors would have been in there, very well, many survivors, probably well into their 30s and 40s at this point in time after surviving the Holocaust. So it would have been a much more painful and clear memory, whereas to us it feels like a historical event, a truly horrific, the most horrific in many ways historical event you could possibly imagine, but it's distant, 70, 80 years ago now. So if you take something like Reign Over Me is a horror, a tragedy that happened, in our lifetime, so 20 years ago now. So the visceral nature of a film made about someone who survived that is maybe a little bit more clean with us. than it would be with someone who is, let's say, 20, who doesn't remember it, or fucking hell, wasn't born when it happened. That's crazy. So that was what I was thinking as well. I think like it's an interesting thing to see a film from the 60s deal with, because PTSD probably didn't have a name back then.
Yeah, it was very much an attitude of suck it up, get on with it. And that's obviously the worst fucking thing to do. But that was the attitude of it. And that was the attitude of people coming, not just in America, but in the UK. Like I remember talking very towards the end of both my granddad's lives, they started opening up more about their experiences in the war, and particularly what it was like coming back. And they didn't see the front lines or anything like that. They were far enough away from the front lines, so to speak, but they still saw stuff. They still experienced things that people should not fucking experience. And the way that they were kind of expected to act and just kind of go, nah, fine, we did it for king and country and all that bollocks. It's like, no, but you did it because some assholes were fucking assholes and everyone had to end up suffering. You're allowed to feel bad. You're allowed to cry about this. You are allowed to take time to heal. I love this movie.
I really liked it as well. It's not an easy watch.
No.
It's a bit slow in parts. There's serious content. But as we have a lot of these type of things, they are quite rewarding if you can make it all the way through. If you're in the mood for something lighter, keep moving. But I would strongly recommend this if you're a fan of this kind of. If what we've talked about today sounds like your kind of thing, then I think if you just enjoy incredible acting, because Rod Steiger was fucking amazing in this. He blew the roof off this one. Yeah. Apparently he was pissed he lost the Oscar. And Sidney Lumet is him at the top of his game. Check out this guy's run from the 60s through to the 80s. Like this guy was. We talk about John Carter's hot run sometimes, or John Landis, these sort of guys who do about 3 or 4 good films in a row. This guy was on top of his game for like 20 fucking years. He was a legend.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you think that way.
I'm glad I picked it too. You have the keys. Where are you taking us next?
I'm following Sidney Lumet. And we are going to one of his last movies, and we are going to go to the 2007 Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
This is a good one.
See, I've never seen it. So I'm excited to experience it. When 2 brothers organize the robbery of their parents' jewelry store, the job goes horribly wrong, triggering a series of events that sends them, their father, and one brother's wife barreling towards a shattering climax. This has got quite a selection of people in there. It's Philip Seymour Hoffman, back to his ballpark again. Ethan Hawke, Albert Finney, Marissa Tomei, Michael Shannon. Who else have we got in there? We have got the original movie Aunt May, Rosemary Harris, that can get us to Spider-Man. You can I lead you to Spider-Man. There you go.
We're the leaders of Spider-Man 3 as well, so not all bodes well.
It's written by Kelly Masterson, who hasn't actually got too much. This was her first credited writing piece. And then she did the screenplay for Snowpiercer. She done Killing Kennedy, a TV movie, Good People, and she seems to generally be sitting in the Snowpiercer section as one of the based. It seems to be just a based on credit, so don't know whether she's still working or not, but she's got some interesting pieces on her resume there.
Well, that will be next week. Something to look forward to there.
Now, what do you want to talk about next?
Let's tell me how you're going with The Peripheral.
The Peripheral, yes, absolutely. The Prime Video new show starring Chloe Grace Moretz. We both watched the first 2 episodes, and we both liked it. We have now gotten to, I think, episode 4. I'm just going to quickly just check that right now because I don't want to tell tales out of school. Yeah. We've got 4 episodes, and it is developing nicely. It has kind of cooled off a smidge from the high quality and narrative drive that was in the first 2, but it is building more of the characters. One character in particular, hang on, I'm just gonna get his name and the actor, Corbel Pickett, the kind of it seems like the seedy underworld boss of this town, played by Louis Hertum. And there's a sequence in it which is awesome. I won't go into detail because you said you're going to get back to this at some point. But needless to say, if you keep animals in your car, wind down the window. It's doing a really nice job of just developing each of the characters that we've generally already been introduced to over the first 2 episodes, and not only just kind of going, oh, we're talking about this person and this is their reasons. It's also informing and leading into the next one. And not only are we getting that in the present time, which Chloe Grace Moretz is primarily in, we are getting it in all the England scenes as well. We have kind of met the big bad, I suppose, or the antagonist, I guess would be the technical term. But I still think there's going to be more, and this is a Jonathan Nolan Joy project, so there's probably going to be a twist. They're interesting, and they are doing things. They've got plans, and they're kind of just nebulous at the moment, these plans, but there's threats, and it feels like, okay, this person is unhinged, is dangerous, and not just because they've got all of the stooges running people down. They are themselves a threat. So it's really developing nicely into kind of a thriller sort of vibe to it, with that science fiction video game sheen. The quality of the special effects is fantastic. It maintains very, very nicely. It has definitely dropped off. Like we talked about the variety from episode 1 to episode 2, which had much more action in it. There's not been that big action sequence again yet, or nothing quite to reach that. But the little bits of action that are in it are still well done, and it still feels like a slightly different kind of show than what it's kind of presenting as, which is like, oh, it's a sci-fi show with a time travel element. When you hear those kind of buzzwords, you have a rough idea in your head. You get a picture in your head of what it's going to be like and how it's going to tell its story. This feels different, which I'm really appreciating.
So it's a bit more of a mind fuck than, say, your standard sci-fi actioner?
It's not mind fuck. It's mind coddle. It's not as invasive or making you kind of think and just kind of trying to work out. So like, oh, so cause and effect, and that happens, and that was going to change that, and that's going to change that. That hasn't really come into it at this point. I think that sort of cause and effect drama is going to play into it in some way, but probably not in the first season. I think there's just going to be some little hints and little nods to it, like they've started having little conversations that at least lead you in that kind of thought process. If you hear them, if you want to fish out those thoughts. But yeah, it's another good quality show from Prime Video. They're doing surprisingly well, keeping a good to great standard. Like we both enjoyed the Terminal. Terminal List with Chris Pratt,
which apparently it was, quite controversial. Apparently critics hated it and Fox News loved it, and the guy who wrote it came out and said it was because woke culture didn't like him and stuff. And I'm like, that makes me like your show less. But
Yeah.
it was enjoyable, yes.
As a show, I enjoyed it. I liked Rings of Power. There's this. They're doing quite well considering they came to the party a little bit later than some of the other ones, but they're definitely determined to stay in that space. So good. I'm looking forward to what they come up with next.
That's encouraging to see. It's hanging in there. It's just gonna be in the mood for like Jonathan Nolan's work.
Yeah, it's not the sort of thing where you can just go, oh yeah, I'll just have that on in the background.
Just dip in and out. You got to be loaded for an episode and got to pay attention. Speaking of Jonathan Nolan, Westworld got cancelled this week. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah, they're finishing up. They're releasing season 4, and apparently the actors are being paid out for season 5. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can do last minute rights to tie it all off, or if I would guess at this point that season 4 is pretty much in the can. So maybe it's just going to be one of those shows that's just never finished,
or somebody else picks it up. It's like there's so much demand for content right now. It's something about brand name. That said, I turned out after about halfway through the second season. It just got a little bit too. I don't really know what's happening on this show now.
I still really enjoyed it, but while we're on the topic of TV shows, we need to have a conversation with Disney Plus. And I feel like you know what I'm going to bring up here. It is the certain news of Disney Plus eyeing up Indiana Jones for a TV show.
I did see that, yes.
Did you vomit at the idea as well?
I was like, could you fucking not?
Yeah.
Like,
let's not say we did.
Now, if HBO or AMC own the rights, and someone said we're going to put together Vince Gilligan's going to do I would be all behind that, but that would be very interesting.
I've just uncovered the very first meth lab.
But it would be a bit weird. But like Disney, I'm sorry, like there are the fanboys out there who keep trying to say every single one of the shows is great. I cried at the end of Kenobi. She-Hulk owned the man-children out there. Andor is the best Star Wars thing for years. I don't know. I haven't seen that one. Fair enough.
Well, the thing with anyone who says anything of the new Star Wars stuff is the best that there has been in years is because there's not been anything good. And when you are suddenly shown solid mediocrity to okay, by comparison, it seems fucking fabulous. It's that simple. But Indiana Jones as a show.
But in fairness, there has been the Indiana Jones TV show before.
Yes, young Indiana Jones, which is fine. What are they going to do, young Indiana Jones here? What are they going to do?
I would doubt it. I mean, it's weird, right? I mean, I thought they were going to do another film. And I thought there was talk of it, and they had a director, and some of the cast has been lined up. And Harrison Ford was coming back.
Yeah.
Like, is this in addition to the 4th Indiana Jones film?
I don't know. Incidentally, I think it's quite funny. I was in JB Hi-Fi the other day. They got a mistake. They got an Indiana Jones quadrilogy box.
It must have like an extras disc or something from the other 3.
Maybe it's got the young Indiana Jones stuff in it or something. But
it could do. But yeah, it's not. I don't. It's no. I mean, I guess they're gonna. I'm not surprised. They're going to try and wring every cent out of all the IP that they have.
Yeah.
And
why this? I genuinely don't know what this story is going to be, unless they do like an anthology series.
Some kind of prequel.
Yeah, I don't know, because Harrison Ford is apparently going to be in the MCU, and he's. What is this? Why do we even need to see a young Indiana Jones? Why do we need to see anything? Because his early, just looking at it on this kind of scale level, let's think of it as Dungeons and Dragons leveling up. He starts in number 1, finding the Ark of the Covenant, a legitimate God-touched artifact. And then number 2, it goes more supernatural and a bit weird, and yet it goes mystical. So it's another step up. And depending on where the chronological order of things is, that one came before Raiders or whatever. And then you've got The Last Crusade, which, again, he's dealing with God stuff. Literally the Holy Grail. What are they going to do? So like, oh yeah, when he was younger, he found what's going to be something that's still kind of like, oh fuck, that's cool, but not as cool as the Holy Grail.
Can I pitch an idea that wouldn't suck?
Okay.
A Disney Plus Indiana Jones universe TV show all about Short Round as a grown-up. Ke Kwan gets his own fucking TV show. No, maybe we get Harrison Ford handing the hat over at the start or meeting up with him or something, but it's all about Short Round's adventures.
That I'd be down for. He's a fucking awesome actor, fabulous in Everything Everywhere All at Once. I want to see more of him. I would be down for that.
I mean, they'd still fuck it up.
Of course.
You know, it would still be shite, but maybe it would stand more of a chance.
Yeah, I'd be more willing for that one.
That I would watch. If it's anything to do with the actual core indie,
come
on, leave it to the films, right?
Well, I mean, honestly, they could probably get Shia LaBeouf nice and cheap. And, you know, there was talk that like Son of Indiana Jones or something like that.
If you're going to get burnouts, why don't you just get Lindsay Lohan for you're missing India? There's nothing that says Indiana Jones has to be a man.
That's true. But Lindsay Lohan, she's about to have a comeback. She's got a Christmas movie on Netflix, man. That's where it starts. Next, we'll see her with Kirk Cameron.
Okay. Oh my God. I follow Kirk on Facebook, and he is down. No shit. A fucking horrible human being.
Rant over. Disney Plus, step up your game, please, and stop just butchering childhood memories. Make something new.
Yes, please. New things. Or if it's going to be something in an existing universe, it's like something cool, right? Like it's an interesting idea. Like, how did he fucking get the dice in the Millennium Falcon? People have been asking for years.
Oh shit! Now that's a story that's too good to tell.
You know, like, how did he get his hat?
Well, we've already seen that.
Did he?
Yeah.
I can't remember. What was that?
Last Crusade.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. At least it wasn't fucking lame like how we got his name in Solo. Well, where did he get his jacket then? Huh? His boots?
I have thankfully pretty much forgotten all of Solo.
Anyway, something a little bit more up and crust, a little bit more serious, a bit more real, and a bit more respectable. This is talk Oscar bait. And Argentina 1985. Apologies to Argentina film fans everywhere, because I did say I was going to talk about it last week, but we just ran out of time. And if you saw last week's show, we even had to cut the Morbid Time segment right down to its absolute thinnest mark. Lord knows if Morbius doesn't get half an hour on the show, what else gets half an hour? Argentina 1975. I was really excited to see this pop up. This is a Prime movie. I believe it's made by Prime. Or for Prime, however you want to put it. And as I said, unsurprisingly, it is an Argentine film. A team of lawyers takes on the heads of Argentina's bloody military dictatorship during the 1980s in a battle against odds and a race against time. You are not going to know any of the actors in this unless you are a regular listener to this show. And the lead actor in this film is Ricardo Darín.
Yes.
The man, the myth, the original legend, the George Clooney of Latin American film, particularly Argentine film. the silver fox, the man around whom the Darren-verse revolves. He's actually a fantastic actor, and I really enjoy his films. Like, I enjoy his films probably more than anyone in Hollywood, except for maybe Brad Pitt. And the fact that Brad Pitt is a piece of shit, apparently, and tried to beat the shit out of his wife and beat his children, and none of them will talk to him. You hadn't heard about that, huh? No one's heard about that. How does this not get out there? Look it up. None of his kids talked to him. He, on a plane, tried to hit his wife and ended up hitting his kids instead. Like, a few of them. Like, it's fucking disgusting. It's terrible. But I like him as an actor. Anyway, not what we're talking about, but Brad Pitt's a piece of shit. Ricardo Darín, as far as I know, he's not. For those who are regular listeners of the show, you might have heard some of the other reviews I've talked about Darín's film. He has starred in Oscar-winning pictures before, including Nine Queens, I think, won for Best Foreign Film. He was also in the original The Secret in Their Eyes, which was remade in Hollywood with Julia Roberts. And this is, again, if you are a regular listener, you might remember maybe a couple of months ago, I talked about a film called The Official Story, which was made shortly after the end of a dictatorship in Argentina, and sort of dealt with a lot of the issues that came up about the dictatorship and the oppression that the country suffered under their rule, particularly around the disappeared. I think I'm calling it right. These are the people who they just basically flat out fucking murdered, tortured, and killed. The dictatorship. Anyone they didn't like. Interestingly, Argentina, I believe, remains the only country who actually successfully tried and convicted the junta, or the dictators, the members of the military who made up, the military government who were running the country between the mid 70s and the early 80s, and who were responsible for the reign of terror, which led to tens of thousands of deaths and murders and disappeared people. This is the story of that effort to try and convict the generals for their crimes while they were running Argentina. So the fact that they remain the only country who's done it should tell you something about how difficult it is to do. Yeah. This is Argentina's nomination for Best Foreign Feature at the Academy Awards next year. I have no idea whether it's actually when they make that announcement. I guess they announce the awards. When do they announce the awards? Like January? I can't remember. And this film reeks of Oscar bait. It's like, oh, come on, give us that nomination. Give it the nomination. Rub it all over my fucking face, that nomination. Because this film's trying so hard to play into that safe space of where the Academy will be like, it's a very worthy film. Ricardo Darín is very good in it. He plays Julio Stracera. I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. He is the lead prosecutor. Okay. And he doesn't have a great deal of interest in prosecuting this case because he's very cynical about its chances of success. And he also realizes that if he has to do that, he would be leaning into something that is actually probably quite dangerous in the sense that they are still men of significant means, power, and influence. And would the army even allow them to be tried, So he's actually kind of like, please don't give me this case. Please don't give me the case. But it lands on him anyway, and he does it because it's his duty to do it. Have you ever seen Judgment in Nuremberg?
No.
It's a famous movie. I'm trying to remember exactly. Was it Jimmy Stewart who was in it? Spencer Tracy and Burt Lancaster. It's a great film, by the way, if you haven't seen it, from 1961. This is Judgment at Nuremberg in Spanish. If there is a courtroom trope that this film doesn't use, I can't think of it because it uses them all. The powerful defendants versus the righteous and hardworking public prosecutors trying to get justice for all the people. It leans so hard into the tropes of a courtroom drama that it kind of loses sight of what really happened, if that makes sense. Like there's one particular scene where there's a woman who testifies in court against the generals who talks about what happened when she gave birth inside one of the more infamous prisons, and how she was in a car. She was in the back of a car, and they wouldn't let her hold her baby until she mopped this entire army base. This fucking horrific story about what they did to her. That's really the only moment where they sort of draw the curtain back, and you can look at a real life story of somebody. I mean, I don't know if this is an actual testimony, but this is the only time we get a real life look at what somebody would have experienced at the hands of these criminals. Otherwise, it's all threatening phone calls and, people following, the prosecutor around, and, people sorting through files and arguments between the lawyers about how they were going to do this. And,
insert John Grisham here.
Yeah, it's really cliched, and it's done well. I mean, it executes the tropes efficiently and effectively. It looks good. The acting's of a very high standard. This film's got some good money behind it. I mean, don't say that high quality productions can't be made in a country like Argentina, because this one does look very, very good. Car bombs blowing up outside the courthouse, and the judges, ruling against the prosecution, and are they biased? Are they not biased? People following the judges around town to try and figure out what their verdict's going to be, because apparently in Argentina the judges come up with verdicts in restaurants that you can sit outside and watch them in.
It's like you're in a cubicle next to someone, you just suddenly hear death, guilty.
And that's a common occurrence in my workplace. So it's pulling all these cliches out, and you're like, yeah, okay, I'm kind of entertained, but I'm just not really feeling a lot of the emotion that must have been there for the people at the time. Like, so I'm going to get my data wrong. Obviously, the film's set in 1985. I think the dictatorship ended in 83.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that. About then. So this is maybe a year, 18 months after the dictatorships ended, that they've actually put the guy on trial. Well, they're not the guys, a whole bunch of them on trial. That must have been for the effect on a society. If you can imagine for a second, if Donald Trump had been put on trial 18 months after he finished his alleged reign as president, like for what the multitude of crimes the guy seems to have committed. Like the effect on the United States society, I mean, probably would have been more severe in many ways, because for all his faults, he didn't, systematically torture his opponents. But give him time. He's going to get a run again, probably. So, but the effect on you can imagine the turmoil in society at this high-ranking figure now being accused of a crime, but these generals and a large portion, as I understand it, of society thought that the dictatorship had been a good thing. They'd been taking care of communists and Marxists and terrorists, and that the trains ran on time, damn it, and we could make money, and business was good while the dictatorship was running and stuff like that. So there's none of that. There's none of this societal stuff. There's no on the streets feel of how this trial is viewed. There's no moment where you start to really realize the scale of the horror that took place under their reign. It's all a bit sterile.
Okay.
So I'm being a bit critical. It's been poorly received in Argentina, I understand. I watched this with Michelle and her parents. Her parents are Argentine Australians. They left at the start of just before the terror, if you will. What do you call it? The dictatorship. Michelle's dad, Hugo, is a very, very street smart man, and he smelled which way the wind was blowing, and he got out. So it's fascinating to watch this with this piece of history with people who I think they're in Argentina when the trial took place. So they now were like, it was okay, but it just kind of glossed over all the things that were happening in the country at the time. The trial was important, but it's only half a story. Well, not even half. It's only a piece of a story.
Do you think that it's not being received well in Argentina, or did any of Michelle's family or Michelle kind of comment on because it didn't depict the more serious stuff because it was kind of sanitized, or because they just don't want to talk about it?
I think sanitize is the word. I don't think it's a case of people not wanting to talk about it. So if we go back to the official story, which is a much more effective and visceral story about what happened under dictatorship and people who were stuck in the middle, or not stuck in the middle, but people who were seeing it for what it was about. It was about a middle-class couple, a middle-aged woman who was married to a doctor who was in bed with a dictatorship, slowly having the blinkers taken off her eyes and seeing the horror of it that had taken place in her country over the previous 10 years or so. And that was made a year, not more than a year after the dictatorship ended, which, if you can imagine the cojones on a filmmaker to go out and make a film about the fact that the military had just murdered a whole bunch of people and were a pack of cunts while they were still free and very important and influential people in society. That takes balls. If nothing else, as far as I am not exactly a scholar of Argentine history over here, but my best I can tell, they confronted it better than a lot of their neighbors who kind of said, don't mention the war. Whereas I think Argentina kind of leaned into it a little bit better. So I think it's mainly that it's seen as a sanitized version of what really happened. And yes, it's a nice depiction of a court case, and it's a reasonably entertaining, intense film, but it really just skims on the surface, if that makes sense.
It's quite a Hollywood production in that regard.
In a way, you could see this film being remade for Hollywood if they thought there was a market for it, which I doubt there is. Unless you could find like an angle where like there's a young American hot lawyer who's helping out, or something like that. Tom Cruise, I don't know what it is. Very Hollywood. It's very slick. That's what I mean. It looks good. It just doesn't have a lot of substance. It's fine for what it is, but if you have any particular interest in the topic, you're probably going to find it probably unsatisfying. If you're just after a good courtroom drama and you don't mind the fact it's in Spanish, go for your life. Oh, it is. There is a dub version available though as well on Prime if you want, and you are a heathen savage. Never go to dub.
Never go dub. All right. Have we got a sponsor this week?
We do have a sponsor this week, and this one's not going to get us copyright struck, I hope.
Yeah. WWE watches our channel, ladies and gentlemen.
Not a great choice for WWE last week, apparently. No, we have a specific...
Let's do WCW instead. That's fine.
They own that shit too. Nobody copyright struck us for the World Wrestling All-Stars the week before. That's not a huge shock. This week's sponsor is, of course, the one, the only. In the world of gaming, being a big gaming day in gaming, it is the Sega Dreamcast.
Dreamcast, one of the best consoles to fail.
They made some nice consoles. This was going to come out, and it didn't work out.
Wait. There we go.
We got it!
Hi, Randy.
Well, hello.
It's thinking.
This is the day you have trained for, the day you have studied for. Utilize your superior skills, your superior intelligence.
Sit down, rodent.
Sarah, baby! Oh, you were one fly.
Don't make me hurt you.
Learn to defeat your ruthless enemy, Steve of Hackensack.
Ryan, you're gonna get roofed.
Shut up, quadruped.
Sega Dreamcast. It's thinking.
Oh yeah, I'm feeling the love.
You feel the glove. But what's your name?
Gary Payton, but they call me the glove.
How you feeling tonight?
Yo, I'm feeling the love.
Feel the love, glove.
Yo, Sonic! Man, stay off the light speed.
My bad.
Sonic Adventure on Sega Dreamcast. It's thinking.
You guys got it made, Randy. You have no idea how it was back in the Genesis days. We couldn't think, couldn't adjust. Look what you got! My receivers couldn't do that, and our defense sucked. You'll never get beat by the same whack play over and over. You better appreciate what you got, Junior. Hey, let me go.
I think Ojimbo got hold of a bad taco.
I'm a legend.
NFL 2K on Sega Dreamcast. It's thinking.
Coming to a Dreamcast near you. You will feel the passion of Soul Calibur.
Man, she's off the hook. Oh, perfect.
Soul Calibur on Sega Dreamcast. It's thinking. Game rated E for everyone.
Adjust to that weak wraparound. Come on. You're playing, Poike. Give me the phone, man. Your mommy is so ugly when she was born. The doctor slapped her mommy. Hey, Billy. Check your replays. Now you look okay for a bit. No, and Shanahan with a blast to the
Hello?
Hey, mommy. You like hockey?
NHL 2K on Sega Dreamcast. It's thinking.
No. What is it, Iverson-san?
I'm getting worked under the boards, Taka.
Show rebound stance. Bamboo reed need deep root for strength.
Go. Come on. Here it comes. Give it to him. Oh! Where'd he learn that?
NBA 2K on Sega Dreamcast. It's thinking. Game rated T for teen.
Yeah, I'm here for my life. Get behind that yellow line.
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. A blast from 1999. That's right.
Never owned us for Dreamcast. I don't know if you did. They gave us a promise.
Not when they first came out. I did get one later on. I've been a Nintendo boy for too long. For too long.
You're right. Yes, I don't think I actually owned a set. I did borrow. I had like a Mega Drive. Sorry, Genesis for our American fans. For a very long time. I borrowed one. I never actually owned it though.
Yeah, I actually had. No, to actually tell a lie. You know what? I had a Master System, a Mega Drive. Then after that, I think I went to the N64, and then I was Nintendo and PlayStation, and now Xbox as well. And just play wherever I can bloody play.
Have you ever thought about getting a Steam Deck?
I've been tempted. I am tempted on getting the VR.
Which one, the PlayStation or the Oculus, or whatever they call it, the Meta Quest?
Well, this brings us on to a little topic, shall we say. So PlayStation VR 2 is coming out in February next year. I think it's February. But it is exclusively for the PS5, which is good. It's forward developing, but none of the PS4 VR games are going to be backwards compatible with it because it's a completely different program set. It is not going to work. So the only reason I have got the only reason I've got a PS5 and the only reason I've got a PSVR for Beat Saber, it is not currently announced for PSVR 2. So very disappointed. Very, very disappointed.
Have you had play with it yet? Have you seen it in action?
The VR2?
Yeah.
No, only the concept videos that they announced a couple of months ago. And I never, ever, ever trust concept videos, especially for VR, because no, you're showing me a 2D image. It's not going to.
Are there games in particular you're looking forward to playing on PSVR 2?
Well, the only one that they're really pushing at the moment is they're doing a virtual reality additional story. I don't think it's a remake of Horizon Zero Dawn, and it's certainly not Horizon Forbidden West, but there is a Horizon VR game. Looks good, but it's just video at the moment. I haven't seen anyone actually playing it. It is still wired, which is mildly annoying, but is.
Next time you come around here, you should try my Quest.
Ooh, yes, I would like
because,
that.
I don't know. Look, I mean, PlayStation has the advantage of a wider library of games potentially. Though, are they any good? We don't know. Whereas at least I guess the Quest has been running for a few years now, and you kind of have a better idea about what you can get.
Yeah.
I'm kind of going. I hope the Horizon West or whatever it is a good game.
Because your one that pairs up with Steam, right?
No.
Oh no, which one's that one? Is that the Facebook one then?
I have the Facebook one. The Quest is the Meta.
Yeah. Sorry, Meta.
It would be nice if it played up with Steam.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I think it's the HTC Vive that does go with Steam because
you're right. That's it.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if it's available in this country.
I think you can get it, but if something goes wrong, support is not great because this is Australia and technologically we are borderline third world country.
I mean, technically the Steam Deck's not available here. You cannot have it shipped here from Steam itself. I mean, there are ways around it. I know some people who have one, but if you're going to oversell, why don't you sell it to me? My money's fucking United States. I swear to God. I remember one time I was in the States and I rang up to pay for something while I was in the country, and it was getting extra credit on my phone. They had an American SIM card, and I gave them a credit card, and they're like, "Sorry, we can't accept that card. It's a foreign card." And you're like, "So, fucking what? Money is money, right?" But they wouldn't take it. The amount of places that wouldn't take a foreign American Express card was astounding in that country.
But your name is literally on it. I really love VR. I love the concept and the notion and the idea of VR, but I still think that beyond experiential things, we haven't got a narrative or should we say campaign story driven killer.
They haven't figured it out yet. We haven't got a killer app. I mean, I was reading a story today about the metaverse and the amount of crazy money that Facebook is sinking into it. Meta is sinking into it. And apparently, I mean, the story's been going around for a few weeks that nobody's on there. Yeah. That was the article I read today. Was this guy checked it out and he went around. He's like, he compared it to Fallout because there was no one anywhere. It was like a wasteland of places. And I don't think Facebook have it figured out. And they're like, oh, people are going to use it for work. And I'm like, fuck off, they are. Like, I don't see why I would. I work from home a lot, and I don't need to see my teammates as avatars. Like, it's
I don't like. I've had a few conversations with people where it's like, really, but we managed to shift so many people who work in offices to work from home comfortably. Now you're trying to get us back into the offices. Why? Oh, you're also trying to get us into virtual offices? Why?
I mean,
what is the purpose?
I can see some benefits of maybe having some kinds of meetings. If everybody had a headset, you could sort of do maybe product demos or something like that in an interesting way. But I wouldn't want to wear one for more than an hour and a half at a time. They get heavy and they haven't figured it out yet.
And that's the other thing. You just know. So like, okay, we're going to have a team meeting. It's just going to be that everyone's got their headset on. You're going to be looking at like the Teams or Skype thing with all of the different windows. There's going to be random people that's going to look down at their crotch and things like that. That's what's going to happen. People are going to get bored and start looking around, or they're going to start trying to break the physics of the game. I'm kind of down for that.
I don't know what's going on. It looked cool in Ready Player One, but I don't think I want to live in that world.
Yeah.
Should we move on now?
Yeah, let's move on. What should we talk about now?
I would like to talk about Bros.
Bros. Okay. What is Bros?
Bros is a new romantic comedy written and starring Billy Eichner. Billy Eichner, I believe, is probably best known as a comedian. He would also be familiar. He's done a lot of TV shows, Park and Rec, American Horror Story. He's done some voice acting on Bob's Burgers. He's done a few films as well. He did a voice in the new Lion King movie. But I think he's best known for his stand-up stuff, if I'm not mistaken. And he's also proudly and openly gay.
Okay.
And this is a gay romantic comedy, to use that term. And an LGBT film, if you will. And basically a stock standard rom-com, with the twist being that the protagonist is gay. Openly so. Two men with commitment problems attempt a relationship. That's not much of a synopsis, but that's what we have. So we have Billy Eichner starring as Bobby. Bobby is a very cynical, single gay man who's kind of at that point in his life, I'm giving up on relationships that don't work. I'm not a relationship guy, and we see him just using Grindr for incredibly impersonal hookups with other guys, which are in and out and over in like half an hour kind of things. It's like, I just said, Michelle and I watching, I was like, my God, like literally he walks in the door and the guy's like, take your shirt off, and they go in the bedroom and get down to action like the minute he walks into the other guy's apartment. I'm like, I wonder if Grindr dates are really like that. And apparently word on the street is that's not uncommon in the gay community. You're like, okay, fair enough. And seems pretty unsatisfying. Where's the sport? He works for, he's got a job as like the CEO director of an LGBT history museum in New York, where I think he's part of a council that runs the museum and is trying to put together the final exhibit before they open and raise the last $5 million they need to raise to get the place open. And these are the most entertaining scenes in the film with the council who runs the history museum, who are Robert, played by Jim Rash, who you probably best know from Community, Angela, played by T.S. Madison, Cherry, played by Dot Marie Jones, Tamara, played by Eve Lindley, and Wanda, played by Miss Lawrence. And they are just hilarious. You probably might, if you've seen the trailer, you might have seen some of the repartee that goes on where like Jim Rash is like, by the way, this is by Awareness Week, and nobody has said anything to me. And Cherry will be like, well, March was Lesbian History Month, and nobody said a word. And she's like, oh, of course, you guys get a month, and we get a week. And I really like that interplay between between the different members of the LGBT family. You know what I mean? It's interesting how they're always kind of lumped in together as one conglomerate group of people, where they are, of course, crazily individuals and incredibly diverse individuals. If you just think about what each of the letters in, the LGBTIQ or LGBT plus, whatever you want to say it. But each of those stands for, right? They have a very different lived experience, and different priorities and different ideas about things. And so it's hilarious to see them all bouncing off each other in these council meetings.
It almost sounds like a comic parody of the scene from Thank You for Smoking, where all of the industry heads are talking about how many people their industry has killed and stuff.
Yeah, that was funny. It's a little bit like that. It's not as dark.
No.
But it is hilarious to see this kind of comedy, because again, they're so often, and they just sort of portrayed as I said, this conglomerate, this black box of the LGBT community. Whereas, like I said, they're all very different, have different experiences, and there would be regular disagreements between them, and they're very funny. Bobby meets a character at a party called Aaron, who he thinks is he's been told is boring, and he thinks is way too hot to be interested in him. Turns out they are interested in each other. He is interested in him, and we sort of follow the path of their relationship as it develops, and their pitfalls and the nadirs, and then the resurrection, and where it all ends up. Billy Eichner's Bobby is an interesting character, and he has a lot of hang-ups about himself physically, about whether he's actually attractive, and whether someone as superficially attractive as Aaron could possibly be interested in him. And that's interesting from a male character in a film. You don't often see a male character portrayed having those kind of insecurities. In a romantic comedy especially. I can't think of too many off the top of my head who play that way. If there's a character with insecurities, it's probably usually the female character.
The only one that I can think of is the J. Baruchel movie, She's Out of the League.
That was an interesting one. I liked that film. It's a good point. That was probably the only other one I can think of. Similar vibe here, very similar vibe, but it is interesting to see that played out here. Billy Eichner is really good in this. He's really funny. He's cynical. He's sarcastic. He looks down on a lot of gay societies. Like, people in this street community think gay people are smart, but we're not. There are a lot of really fucking stupid people in the gay community. And he's really cynical about the other members of the gay community and how stupid they all are, and how, that stereotypical, take your shirt off and, dance to really loud. The scene in The Simpsons where Homer takes Bart to the, he's like, "Hey, why did you take me to a gay, Dad? Why did you take me to a gay steel mill?" That kind of thing. He would look down on that kind of part of gay culture, I think. And I guess it helps that he wrote it. He gets like the best lines in the film. And most of the laughs either include him or the council I mentioned earlier. The director is Nicholas Stoller, who co-wrote it as well. Specializes in this kind of fluff. He directed a few different.
Getting Sarah Marshall. He did the
Greek, Neighbors. Neighbors 2. This is in his wheelhouse, and he does it competently. Where the film falls down is, again, a little bit like Argentina in 1975. Is it really doesn't highlight the crimes of the Argentinian dictatorship during the 70s and 80s. None of that's mentioned in this film.
Disappointing.
It is disappointing, but no, I was expecting. No, just kidding. What it does, it deals in tropes. Its format is there's a formula for writing rom-coms, and it follows it to the letter. As I said, the only interesting angle on this is the sort of the fact that it explores an LGBT relationship in a fairly straightforward, straight ahead, run-of-the-mill rom-com formula. The other part that really fails it is some of the casting.
Okay.
Mainly the casting of Aaron, who spends a lot of time on screen opposite Bobby. Now, I think Billy Eichner actually could be a big star. I think he's got a lot of charisma on screen. The camera likes him. He's got great comic timing. He's very funny. It just goes to be seen whether or not they can find roles for him that are, suitable. I can't see him as an action hero, but that would be interesting. Aaron, played by Luke McFarlane, who I've never heard of, is significantly less effective in his role. So if I'm looking at his CV, I see a lot of at least 2 Christmas movies: A Christmas in My Heart, A Chateau Christmas, Magical Christmas Village, at least 1 Valentine's Day movie. He's done a lot of TV. And for him to be co-star in a fairly biggish motion picture is a bit of a step up for him. And I don't think he pulls it off for me. He can't keep up with Billy Eichner. So I think really great rom-coms, if you think of something like When Harry Met Sally, or I don't know, Sleepless in Seattle, if you like that one, Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, or Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan have this incredible repartee and chemistry on screen together. It's when they work really well. It really comes down to how well do these two. Do you want to watch these stars? Do you want to watch them get together? How do you, we talked about it a while ago with My Fake Fiance. Sabrina the Teenage Witch and the guy off Blossom. That's how memorable it was. I can't remember the stars' names.
Melissa Joan Hart
and Joey Lawrence.
Yes.
And despite that film being a stinking turd of a film and like a terrible script, those guys had such great chemistry. They kept it afloat.
Yeah.
You enjoyed watching them together on screen. This is like watching Billy Eichner acting opposite Han Solo frozen in carbonite. That's how much charisma Luke McFarlane's Aaron has. Like he is like a handsome plank of wood.
That's a shame.
And the only thing I can think of here is maybe I'm assuming, I don't know. I'm going to assume here that Luke McFarlane is also gay. In the sense that in today's world, I don't know that it's okay to cast a straight actor as a gay actor anymore. And this film goes out of its way to take the piss out of gay cowboy films where straight actors play gay just to win an Oscar. Like it makes jokes about that on a number of occasions and about how depressing those gay cowboy movies are. And so I'm guessing he also probably is gay, and maybe that's why they've cast him in this role when he isn't really, I don't know, a star of the same caliber as Billy Eichner, who is, if you don't know who I'm talking about, Google him, you'll know his face. I've seen him around the place. So I'm guessing, maybe that's it. I don't know. There are a lot of openly gay leading men in Hollywood.
Certainly not that command the big tentpole movies. I mean, I think Luke Evans is gay, and he's possibly one of the biggest. What's his name? Rupert Friend. Is it Rupert Friend? Maybe there's someone else. There were those two. I think were both in contention for James Bond at some point, but their sexual preference hindered them or something. There was a debate about it like 15 years ago.
But that's probably the film's weak point for me, because I think it's well written, it's funny, it's light, it's enjoyable. If you want to see a rom-com on Saturday night, and if you don't want to watch something like Argentina 1975 or a Pawnbroker, this would be actually really good fare. This is a nice leave your brain at home material. You don't have to think too hard about it. I would recommend it for that. But I just felt like that the one of the key elements of a rom-com didn't come to fore, because I just think his co-star was a bit flat.
Okay.
I mean, it's fine. It made the news a couple of weeks ago because it hasn't done good business at the box office overseas. And I think Billy Eichner basically said it's because the straight people didn't come out. And maybe he's right. I don't know. I also think it's a really shit name for a rom-com. Like,
It
if I see a
kind
film
of
called,
sounds like it should be when you hear bros, and especially is about boy meets bro. That sounds like the name and tagline of a Seth Rogen comedy.
yeah, it should be like Mates, about two guys who become like that that film with Philip Seymour Hoffman and Jason Segel was about guy friends. I can't remember what it was called. It was bromance films. Yeah. I Love You, Man.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Not Philip Seymour Hoffman. That was Paul Rudd.
But I think Philip Seymour Hoffman was in it. Don't quote me anyway. But that's what it feels like it should be like, like we're bros, man. And it kind of fits with the actual nature of the film in the end. But again, we always say, if I'm lining up to see a film on a Saturday night, I don't want to see, I also could think it's about the band from the 80s,
That would be interesting.
Luke Goss is an actor, but so I don't know. It didn't quite stick the landing in some ways, but it's still thoroughly watchable.
Okay.
Can I pivot to a better romantic comedy?
Yes. Now, is this Always Be My Maybe?
Yes.
Yeah, I have seen this one too.
It's the first time I've seen it. It was recommended to me by Michelle, and it was also recommended to me while we were watching one that I'll talk about next week. We've actually watched the first 2 episodes of Blockbuster on Netflix. I won't go too deep into my thoughts about it yet, because maybe you might want to watch a couple episodes too. And we can do that rare thing. We've actually watched the same fucking thing for a change. And Randall Park is in that. Yes. And Randall Park is in this. And it got me looking at his resume going, this is an interesting one. And it's also an interesting role for one of Hollywood's biggest names who turns up halfway through the film. Always Be My Maybe. Everyone assumed that Sasha and Marcus would wind up together, except for Sasha and Marcus. Reconnecting after 15 years, the two start to wonder, maybe. Starring Ali Wong, Randall Park. Ali Wong, again, another very successful American stand-up comedian. Birds of Prey she was in, and a lot of television stuff. I don't know if I've seen a whole lot of her stuff, but I'm told a very funny and successful stand-up comedian. Randall Park, as I just mentioned, is in Blockbuster. He was in Fresh Off a Boat. Probably most memorably, he is in the MCU as Jimmy Woo in WandaVision and the Ant-Man films.
Yes.
I remember when the WandaVision came out, everyone was like, I want to see Jimmy Woo and someone else, Kat Denning doing Darcy doing like X-Files style stuff. And I'm like, fuck yes, make that happen, Disney. There's my second complaint for Disney Plus today. Why hasn't it? That would be good. That'd be a lot better than most of the direct you've pumped out. Anyway, they know each other as kids. They kind of grow up in the same neighborhood, and Sasha's parents are genuinely absent parents in the sense they're running a restaurant, and she's what we in the 90s would have called a latchkey kid. She comes in, lets herself in. And Anne spends a lot of time with Marcus and his family. Ends up like learning how to cook from Marcus's mother, and they sort of grow up as best friends. We cut forward to seeing them as teenagers, and Marcus's mother passes away when he's in his teens. And it's a massive loss for Sasha as well, because she was kind of a surrogate mother to her. They end up having a brief romance as teenagers, subsequent to which Marcus completely screws the pooch with her, and that's it. They basically don't see each other again for years. For 15 years. And we cut to 15 years later. Marcus is living with his dad, working with his dad, installing air conditioners or something like that. Whereas Ali Wong's Sasha has gone on to become a very successful celebrity chef, often using some of the stuff she learned from Marcus's mother. She comes back to San Francisco to open a restaurant there, and ends up living in a rented house for a little while, at which Marcus and his dad, Harry, come along to fix the air conditioning. And lo and behold, they bump into each other. Oh my God, it's been, been such a long time. In fact, the whole meeting is engineered by Sasha's best friend and assistant, Veronica, played by Michelle Buteau, who again is one of those faces you go, I have seen you in things.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you exactly what.
Nope.
But she was in Clerks 3. That's why I know her. That would explain it. And their relationship sort of goes from there. And it just really, again, it goes through a lot of those romantic comedy tropes. The rekindling. Oh, we don't like each other. Oh, he fucks it up again. Maybe it's going well. Actually, it's not going well. And then the resolution. The real charm to this film, and it has a 6.89 DB, which is very low because this is a very good film.
Yeah.
And we've talked before and recently about how a lot of the best stuff that's being done in American cinema is Asian American cinema.
Yes.
Add this to the pile because this is almost a straight out Asian American cast, except for the cameo of the century so far. At one point, after spending some time in San Francisco, Sasha meets and starts dating the one and only Keanu Reeves, who plays the role of Keanu Reeves.
Yes.
And it is he's outstanding in this film. Like, if anybody ever tries to tell you Keanu can't do comedy anymore, like, you're forgetting about the fact he started out doing comedy. But he is so fucking good as himself in this film. He plays a really entitled, arrogant douchebag character in the most hilarious way possible.
Every single bit of him is just a mockery of kind of that pompous piety of celebrity, and it's made more funny because everyone has seen and knows what Keanu Reeves is actually like in the real world, where he sort of rides the bus and things like that, and he's very, very, very down to earth. So seeing him like the combat fight sequence thing, it's so absurd. It's just delicious to watch. It's just entertainment, pure and simple.
It's really gold. Like from eating in the most pretentious restaurant you've ever been to in your entire life, where Keanu rocks up with glasses with no lenses in them because they're four apart, and then he invites him back to his apartment, and the whole time he's kind of rubbing the fact that he's sleeping with Sasha in Marcus's face, and Marcus's girlfriend Jenny is there as well, and you can see she's completely in love with and overcome with starstruck over with Keanu, and it's glorious to see it play out. And as you say, it all ends up in combat, a fight sequence in Keanu's apartment where he punches him in the face, and then they end up leaving. And I think the conclusion of that scene is perfect as well. Is they're in an Uber getting it on, Sasha and Marcus making out in the back of an Uber, and the camera pans forward, and there's someone else in the front seat, and it's an Uber pool. And they're like, did Keanu actually deliberately order us a Keanu pool? An Uber pool. But it's like, it's so good. It doesn't do anything particularly new with the formula.
No.
You've seen this film before. But every part of it is fun. It's beautifully written. Randall Park, Ali Wong, and Michael Golanko, who hasn't done a whole lot of other things for me. He did Grimm, which I think you were a fan of.
Oh, yeah.
But if this is one of the best rom-coms I've seen probably since The Big Sick, mainly because people forget the com part of rom-com. It's funny. And just to come back to my point again, what I was talking about earlier, Ali Wong and Randall Park work perfectly on screen together. There's incredible chemistry between the two of them. They bounce off each other so beautifully. They look like they're having a great time. They work wonderfully well. So the chemistry between the stars really helps make this a fantastic little film.
Absolutely.
think it's on Netflix in Australia.
Netflix, yeah. It's another tick in the box for Netflix. Finally, of good, solid movie. I actually remember watching this because this is from 2019, and I think I watched it when it first came out, and I was surprised, and it's like, oh, that wasn't a bad Netflix movie. Wait, what? And just I rewatched it again a couple of days afterwards, just kind of going, that stuck with me for some reason, and it was because it was actually funny. And that seems to be one of the big things that people forget in comedy movies now is actually make it funny. And they are funny. And it is because of that that chemistry between the two. Maybe it was just them sitting down and just smashing out a script just to go, you know what? No one's making movies we want to fucking make, so let's make our own. And they just nailed it to the point where they turned trash into treasure. But there's something so pure-hearted about it as well. There's the simplicity of it, and the fact that the family element of it's not get the character names again. Marcus or Sasha's parents that are on screen. It is the connection of that parent, that kindred connection, that is the kind of heart of it, and the sweetness and innocence in many ways of the evolution of a relationship. It just plays honestly.
It feels legit. I mean, and I guess the other part that I liked about it was instead of it being like, you know, Marcus is the loser here. He's not the successful one. He's the stoner with a band who he refuses to audition for pubs on the other side of town. Even though they might actually be good. You know, he's stuck. Failure to launch, you know, Arrested Development kind of character.
We don't mention failure to launch.
Well, I think it's an interesting idea if it was a bad film. You know, like it's kind of he's stuck in his where he grew up and he's looking for excuses not to move on. Whereas Sasha moved on years ago. And for once, it's kind of like her kind of coax him out. Hey, you know, look, I'm fucking successful. I'm going to go and do me, and you got to catch up with me. And that's an interesting angle for these sort of films.
Very true. Very true. It's another one like what you were saying before. For what was it we were talking about? I can't remember now. But that gender role reversal and actually using it to tell a compelling story. It's amazing what happens when you actually go, you know what? We are going to do something that is socially conscious, and we're going to make it interesting. We're going to utilize that to inform our story and heighten the characters in our story.
I didn't even know I'd call it socially conscious. It's just a case of the Asian American community is, I don't know, a couple of 100 years old now, if you don't count. You ever been Chinese people in the United States for probably that long? It's a little bit like there's people, Asian Australians, like they've been in Australia for 150 years, guys. So this is a well-developed community, especially on the West Coast. You know, I mean, San Francisco has the world's oldest Chinatown. And this community has traditions and stories, and, you know, there's a lot of funny stuff. There's a lot of great stories, a lot of great material in there to pull a movie together with. And it's fantastic that we're finally getting a chance to do it. And now I think that's the idea is Bros was trying to go for, right? It's like there are some fantastic stories and characters in the LGBT community. Didn't quite pull it off as well as this did.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the try.
Yeah, I think so. I enjoyed this. I'm going to go back and watch it again because I like it.
Now for something completely different. And this is my last one for tonight. If anyone's watching the clock, the Al Yankovic story. I saw this last night, and I am not ashamed to say I torrented the whole fucking thing because I don't know if you saw the tweet from Al Yankovic earlier in the week. Someone actually asked him and said, "How can I watch this in Australia? Because this is on the Roku channel in the US. I don't even know what the fucking is. Like, certainly not available here." And Al said, well, Roku are working on it. In the meantime, VPN, something else. But basically, I'm sure you have a torrent of other questions, but I don't have time to answer them. So, it doesn't sound like it's going to be legally available here.
I do find that particular thing funny, considering one of his parody songs is "Please don't download this song illegally."
Explores every facet of Yankovic's life, from his meteoric rise to fame, with early hits like "Eat It" and "Like a Surgeon," to his torrid celebrity love affairs and famously depraved lifestyle. This is a very, very unusual film, in the sense it's parodying an entire genre of films, yet it's about a parody artist. So it's very meta. It works on many layers.
It's so parody. It's serious.
It is. It plays the whole film with a very straight bat. It plays it very seriously. It plays like it's a real Oscar bait biopic. You know the ones: Walk the Line, Ray, Rocket Man. So sort of about a music artist. It's Bohemian Rhapsody. It's a very serious film about a very serious artist who deserves to have a film made about him. But it's utterly ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. That Weird Al is played by Daniel Radcliffe in this film. There are a number of other cameos and reasonably well-known people who pop up. Adrian Bader plays the narrator. Lin-Manuel Miranda has a quick cameo as a doctor. Rainn Wilson plays Dr. Demento. Julianne Nicholson plays his mother. If you don't know who that is, don't worry, neither did I. But look at her picture. I was looking at the whole film going, fuck, I've seen her in things. She'll be a face you recognize. I think she was on Law and Order or something. Toby Huss from Halt and Catch Fire. And probably the highlight of the film was Evan Rachel Wood, who plays Madonna.
Okay.
And so the film isn't really about Weird Al Yankovic, but it pretends it's about Weird Al Yankovic, if that makes sense. Like, it's obviously the lead character was Weird Al, and it tells his life story as if it's telling his life story, but that's not his life story. There are parts of it that are based on reality. Like, he did buy his first piano accordion off a door-to-door salesman. But I really doubt his dad beat the everlasting shit out of the salesman for bringing an accordion into his home. I do know that he recorded his first ever song, My Bologna, in one of his early songs. He actually recorded it in a toilet. But, I don't believe that he ever single-handedly took on a Colombian death squad and killed, Colombian drug gangsters. Look, I mean, I could be wrong. Who knows? But the man behind the laughs, Pablo Escobar, that's the guy. I'm pretty sure he didn't kill Pablo Escobar, but, the film might tell you differently.
You just believe in what what the papers want you to believe.
Yeah. He, is familiar with Madonna. Potentially, you might even say on friendly terms. Isn't it? I believe she actually recommended he cover Like a Virgin. But I'm pretty sure he didn't have a torrid love affair with Madonna. And I'm pretty sure Madonna didn't go on to replace Pablo Escobar as the head of the Colombian drug cartel and later have Weird Al Yankovic assassinated. So that's what I'm talking about here. This is a laugh out loud, hilarious parody of super serious Oscar bait biopics. And it's done gorgeously. The music is obviously Weird Al's. Daniel Radcliffe gives a note-perfect performance in the sense of, like, he's funny, but he doesn't look like he's trying to be funny, if that makes sense. Like, he's playing it straight, and that's what makes it funny. and he looks the part. He looks ridiculous as Weird Al, which is exactly the way it should be. Daniel Radcliffe's perfect choice. And Evan Rachel Wood absolutely fucking nails Madonna. Like, not in a literal sense, obviously. But
we don't know.
Madonna, she's an open-minded person, I'm sure. She absolutely gets the voice right. She gets the look right, the attitude. And I watched this with Michelle, Madonna super fan, who was pointing out a number of references that she was like, oh, when she says that, it's actually a reference to this or a reference to that. Also noticed a flaw in the film in a sense, in one particular performance in the mid-'80s, there were of Like a Surgeon, some of the dancers were wearing those Madonna cone bras. It's like, actually, they didn't come about until the Blonde Ambition tour in 1990, so he wouldn't have had those dances at the time of Like a Surgeon. I'm like, okay. It was an education on all things Madonna for me. I can't recommend this film highly enough. It is ridiculous. It's very, very silly and ridiculous film. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It just doesn't take itself. It takes itself very seriously by not taking itself seriously at all. I know that feels like it makes no sense at all, but that's probably the best way I can describe it. It's, I mean, I think my favorite scene might have been Dr. Demento brings at Weird Al. Dr. Demento was a radio host, by the way, in the United States, a very popular radio host who played like novelty records and stuff, and was the actual person who discovered and made Weird Al famous. He hosts a pool party, and the people at this pool party are like Andy Warhol, Salvador Dali, the guys from Devo are there, Frank Zappa's there, Grace Jones, Divine. And then out of the crowds, they're like Jack Black in a great cameo as Wolfman Jack, who I think is supposed to be a radio DJ as well. It says, I challenge you, if you're so good, if you're the future of music, why don't you write a parody song right here, right now? And he goes, what song should I parody? And someone goes, what about Another One Bites the Dust? And this guy sort of walks out of a crowd, and it's David Dastmalchian. He's the polka dot man. And, what was Suicide Squad. And he's like, I'm John Deacon. And everybody just has this look around. Michelle's like, who's that? And it's almost like the film knows you have no idea who John Deacon is. He goes, I'm in Queen. I play bass for Queen. And the film is so self-aware and knowing that you don't fucking know who John Deacon is, despite the fact John Deacon actually wrote who Another One Bites the Dust, which later becomes Another One Rides the Bus. So check it out, download a copy, because if I was to be believed, it's not going to land here anytime soon. It's not going to cost you anything, and I think it might be the funniest film I've seen this year.
Ooh, okay. Good to know. All right, well, I am going to round off the show with my last movie of the week, which is Enola Holmes 2.
As soon as I saw this pop up on Netflix, I'm like, money on, he watched that.
Well, I watched the first one, and I like Sherlock Holmes. And
you didn't like the first one that much, I think.
I enjoyed it. It was a good start. And this straight off the bat, you do very quickly get the feeling, okay, everyone involved is more secure and confident in what they're doing. Millie Bobby Brown is she is developing her acting skills from when she broke onto the scene in Stranger Things. And she has continued to just fine-tune her performance, and she's getting better at that subtlety of comedy with a bit more of that serious. She's riding the wave of a scene better. Henry Cavill is actually really kind of fun as Sherlock Holmes, and in this one we see a little less of the pompous nature of most Sherlock Holmes in versions that we see. He's, with the first time we see him, he's drunk in the street because he was having an argument with someone about whose wine was whose. And we see him in a bit of a disheveled state, almost not to the point of how Robert Downey Jr. portrayed him in his Sherlock Holmes movies, but we just get that nice little bit of he's like a single bachelor living on his own, and he's a bit of a trash panda. And the fact that we now have that kind of thing with a younger sibling or ward, it just kind of works. And it's another one of the real nice thing about this story is it continues in a more subtle but stronger way of being more aware of the times of Sherlock Holmes with the suffragette movement, for one thing, and kind of bringing that a little bit into relevance of modern day society, of the sexual imbalance in society. And it's doing it much better. We've got Helena Bonham Carter reprising her role as their mother, and she is just having fun. Like when she was Bellatrix Lestrange, cackling with joy and spinning around and doing all of this stuff. You see her in that same kind of mild mania, but you root for her because she's fighting for women's suffrage and the liberation of the women from the oppressive boot of man, essentially. And it actually does it very, very well. Everything about this story is just, like I say, a step up. And I think this is a good continuation for a franchise. I think that the director, Harry Bradbeer, he did the first one. He also directed Fleabag and Killing Eve. So he's got some success behind him already. But I think this is something that is going to help him become much more palatable as a director to hire for. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets offered like an MCU gig or a DC movie gig, because he's doing the things in the big blockbuster movies like to do, but he's doing it on. It's obvious that this doesn't have a $200 million budget like those sorts of things, but he's still bringing together a top quality, well finished, well presented film on time, probably on budget, as well as just going, yes, we've got a fun, compelling female lead with a social comment that is being portrayed rather well. We've got good quality action. We've got a bit of the romance going on as well. It's ticking a lot of boxes. So this is a kind of a good CV filler series. But he's, much like what we've said about the first two Ant-Man movies, is how they were solid and they just kind of, yep, we know what movie we want to make. And they succeeded in that. They didn't try to change the way of cinema or anything like that. That's what these Enola Holmes movies are doing. And unlike last week's heinous School for Good and Evil, this is just a better produced thing. Everyone is enjoying themselves very clearly, for one thing, and you gotta feel like it's actually better interpretation and representation of the source material that it's coming from. So I'm really surprisingly enjoying this little franchise. I don't entirely know why, but it's just doing everything that it wants to do, and it's doing it well. And just enjoy
the charm of someone like Millie Bobby Brown, who really
definitely
she has star quality.
Yes. It has got that she does break the fourth wall, where she just looks at the camera and starts talking. Like there's a bit where she is kind of. It's suggested that she's subconsciously gone to a park where she's gonna see a young lord that she saved in the first movie, and now she's got a bit of a thing for. And he's walking away, and she just looks at the camera and like, is he looking back? And you see him turn around and look and then walk away. And then she looks, it's like, oh, no, he didn't. Good. So there is that little fourth wall break, but it's endearing. It's not done, and you don't kind of look at it and think, oh, that's cheesy, a la She-Hulk. And it's not overt, and it's not the same kind of fourth wall breaking as Deadpool has. This is just an interesting quirk of the character and the style of movie that they want to present, and it just kind of works. Does
That's
it
good
work?
news.
Yeah.
I mean,
So we'll get another one.
Well, I mean, if she wants, Millie Bobby Brown's kind of a big star now. Henry Cavill, big question if he has the time. Now that he's not doing The Witcher anymore, right? He's had some sort of falling out for producers and doesn't want to do it. Now it's going to be a discount Hemsworth.
But if rumors are to be believed, and the biggest news of the last week with Mr. Gunn coming in and taking over as the creative lead for DC films, we may see him come back as Superman.
That's the word on the street. He's back with Superman, and Affleck's signed back on as well. So that's the word.
Okay.
That's the word.
Restore the Snyderverse.
Let it die. Kill the past.
But yeah, Enola Holmes 2, great success. It's not offensive or bloody in any particularly overt, disgusting way. So this is definitely a top quality PG-13 movie that if you've got kids or you just want something nice and comfortable to just have in the background while you're doing other things, this is a great movie for that. You can easily keep up with the pace of the movie if you're kind of having it on in the background. It's a solid film. Yeah.
Wow, I'm almost tempted to watch it.
I would say have a taste of the first one. If you don't like the first 20 minutes, bounce. Do I need to watch the first one to enjoy the second one? You don't need to, but relationships are established and progressed from the first one to the second one, but you don't need to. One of the nice things about this, Enola talking directly to the audience, is she does kind of catch you up on things in the movie if you didn't watch the first one. So you don't have to, but style-wise, I don't know. I'd say watch Enola Holmes and then Enola Holmes 2, but you're not going to be going, oh my God, there's so much story. What's going on? I don't know what the relationship is with this one and that one. It's fine. It tells everything you need to tell.
Cool. Good to know.
Yeah.
Have you got anything else? You don't. Are we going to let people have their some blood run back into their ass as long as ours?
Yeah, absolutely. Next week, I'm going to try and get my ass to the cinema to watch Wakanda Forever. But it's getting some interesting mixed reviews so far. Some people are saying that it's a bit of a mixed bag, trying to do too many things and not necessarily succeeding all the way. Others are saying that it's an emotional roller coaster that will have you on the edge of your seats. I'm curious to see where I will fall.
Gonna make up my own mind.
Absolutely. But beyond that, that is our show, ladies and gentlemen. We have talked about our chain movie of the week, The Pawnbroker. I have picked Before the Devil Knows You're Dead as our next step. We talked about The Peripheral, or I did. Travis talked about Argentina 1985. Bros, Weird, Always Be My Maybe. And then I finished off with Enola Holmes 2 just now. But thank you so much for joining us this week. If you do have any recommendations or suggestions for things that you want us to watch, please jump into the chat on twitch.tv/The Fried Brain or youtube.com/Armchair Producers, even on facebook.com/Fried Brain Productions. You can follow us on Twitter @The Fried Brain, @EvilTrav. we will happily take your recommendations. Just give us a reason why. It doesn't have to be a great movie. It could be a terrible movie, and a reason why.
We watched fucking Thomas and the Tank Engine because one of your mates recommended it. So you know.
Yeah, I'm still not forgiving Amy for that one. There's a reason why she's hiding from me, I think.
We don't forget.
No, we never will. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night, and don't forget, everyone's reading this book suspiciously all at the same time. It's really weird.
It is. It's very.
You too could read words on a printed page. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Until next time. Good night.
Good night.